Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Jamie Maciejewski. I'm the Executive Director here at Habitat for Humanity, locally, East Jefferson County. We have been enjoying so much talking with people in the community, listening to people, sharing this vision for housing, affordable housing, accessible housing in Port Hadlock, and are looking forward to sharing more with you about that today, and to answering questions and getting your feedback, because that's been a goal of ours, that we incorporate community feedback into our work so that we make sure that this is a community that fits for the broader community and for the people who will be neighbors and the people who might be living there and all of that. So we'll get you out within an hour and really look to you to help us figure out what we're going to talk about as well. We have some slides to share in a moment. But first, before we dive into those, I want to say, I think many of you know what we're up to. Habitat for Humanity has been working very diligently to increase the number of people that we can serve in the community annually. And that we're excited about that. Last year, we sold 5 homes and did 3 critical repairs to homes, so 8 families served. We had accepted a year ago 7 new buyers, home buyers, interested partners into our program, which was a record. This summer, we selected 12. So another record, and it looks like we will be continuing to really increase as potentially that large of an increase. We expect to complete somewhere between 8 and 11 homes in the 12-month period that we're in right now, which will also be a record. It definitely, we're starting to feel that sense of the impact is greater. And when we can get to serving more people with home ownership opportunities in a community where it's so hard to find housing, we just are excited about that impact. And many of you on this call have been key to making that happen. So I want to say thank you. You each wear a different hat in regard to housing and your commitment. And so know that this wouldn't get done without such important community support. So let's go ahead and share the screen, the slides, and we're going to then be able to answer some questions, share about what's happening. This picture, I love this picture. This is at a home dedication very recently in June. 3 of the kids celebrating about that, and love that picture. So we're talking about the old Airstrip at Cedar and Mason Streets in Port Hadlock. Go ahead, Genevieve. We like to remind people of what our mission is. You'll probably need to advance it on a different screen. There you go. Thank you. Habitat for Humanity's mission is not just about building houses. It's actually a little broader than that. It's about bringing people together to build houses or homes and communities and hope. And we feel like that is the significant missing piece in society these days, ways to bring people together who don't normally talk to each other or know each other or have opportunity to come into each other's orbits, do so when we're talking about something as important as housing. So go ahead, Genevieve. We have what we're hoping to cover today. We want to share what we know and what the vision is for Mason Street, listen and answer questions, get some input, and share what our next steps are. This family here that there's a picture of, this was at groundbreaking for their home. Katie is on the right and Hazel is on the left and Grandma is in the center. And Katie and Hazel moved into their house just about 3 weeks ago. So that's our newest family. Go ahead. Here is the property. This property, can you see my cursor moving around? Anybody? No? All right. So yeah, Genevieve will move it around. Okay, so thank you. Mason Street is at the top on the north side. Cedar Street is on the east on the right hand side. And then it goes down to Ness Corner Road there, that's just partly showing at the bottom of the slide, curving. If you went to the right there east, you'd go a half mile and get to the QFC. You also can see the library, the Jefferson County Library in the picture at the bottom right, and you can see the primary school just to the left of that in Port Hadlock. So it's an incredible location. There's also a transit stop there on on Cedar Street. It is a great walkable place. It's flat. That stripe across it is the old Airstrip. We don't have an Airstrip there any longer. The old use, the specialized use of it went away when we bought it in May. The community brought this project to Habitat and Jefferson Community Foundation in late 2021. So almost a year ago, some community members said, you know, we recognize you might have looked at this property before, and we had, but we really think you need to look more closely at it because we think it's one of the most exciting opportunities to make it possible for housing at a large scale in a beautiful community, the community of Port Hadlock. And so we said, okay, if you are encouraging us to look at this, we're going to look at this more closely. And we put it under contract shortly before Christmas last year. The sellers said you can have 5 months to look at it. If you decide to back out, well, we don't have much sympathy for you, but you could anyway. So we went along, and through that time, we did all the things we need to do for a feasibility study. We looked at whether there were wetlands, no, whether there was environmental contamination, not what we could find, whether there was the ability to build housing. Yes, the zoning is going to change when the sewer comes in 3 years. Will the sewer come in? Everything points to yes on that. We looked at all the different ways. We did some possible how many houses could go on there. The zoning that will come into place as soon as the sewer's in place will allow between 120 and 205 homes on that property. Really remarkable opportunity there. That's a lot of housing, and we had to ask ourselves, our board of directors had to ask us, if you bite this off, can you finish what you start? Can we raise enough money to do this project? Is there going to be enough community support? So while we were asking all the questions about could we build on this property, we had to ask that question about money. Donors in this community stepped up in a really remarkable way and committed to this project $4.4 million by the time we got to when we needed to close on it. That fully covered the cost of purchasing the property at $1.24 million and made us a really strong start toward the total $5 million that we think it will cost to put in the infrastructure before we start building houses. So we pressed go and we purchased the property in May. Biggest vision that Habitat's ever had to do this. And I want go ahead, Genevieve. Yeah, let's move to the next slide and talk about what that might mean. Houses plus heart and hands here is the image. The houses, there's going to be Habitat homes. We serve people who are under 80% area median income. What that means for a family of 4 is about $60,000 annual income. The Habitat homes will be owned by those families, and they will be both single and multifamily homes. Now, That's not all of the houses, though. Habitat expects to do somewhere around a third of the total homes, but the rest of the homes need to be built in other ways. They will be serving mostly people who are more than 80% of area median income, people like teachers and nurses, people who own businesses, people who work at the sheriff's department, who work in the police department, people who aren't able to move here right now to take jobs that they've been offered, people who move away because they can't find housing, even though they have skills that this community really needs. Both ownership and rental in those over 80% area median income homes. And those will be single and multifamily. We don't know what all the combination will be, but 100% of the homes, whether they are lower income or moderate income homes, will be kept permanently affordable forever. And I do want to talk about that and share how that's going to happen a little bit. But first, let's go ahead and move to the next slide, and I'll come back to talking about that affordable now and forever plan. Vision: 120 or more homes, children who attend the local schools, residents who work in the local workforce, retirees, the ability to age in place. First homes, that bullet isn't on this, but that's what I want to say. These are not going to be rental, these are not going to be second homes. They're not vacation rentals. They are homes for people who live here and work here. We expect there to be an attractive neighborhood, vibrant with green spaces and amenities. And we expect to collaborate with a lot of groups in making this a reality. Habitat will be able to build many of the homes, but more than that will need to be built by others. So here's what our timeline looks like. We're gathering community input. That's where we are right now. This coming year, we'll be doing a master plan on the project. And in 2025, we understand that by the end of 2025, the sewer infrastructure should be in place. The county has in hand $30 million out of the projected $32 million or so that they need to do this project. That will sewer the kind of the core area of Port Hadlock, not the whole wide Port Hadlock neighborhood, but the core area, particularly businesses and the apartments that do exist in Port Hadlock, the areas that are zoned for multifamily housing. We still need to determine, once the master plan is in place, when that infrastructure will be built out and when we'll start home building. Home building, the homes can't be in place until the sewer is in place. So we know it's at least 3 years. We don't know if it's a little longer than that. It's likely longer because we'll probably be doing the infrastructure about that time. Although the county's been really helpful in working with us on that timeline. Before I go to input and asking you for your input, I'm going to just describe a little bit about this, the permanent affordability model. And maybe we could stop sharing screen right now and just come back to seeing people. And let me tell you what we mean when we say it's permanently affordable. And welcome to those who've been able to join us. It's really nice to have you. That we are going to make sure that when the homes are sold or rented, they are affordable to people who need housing and have income at certain levels. The current median house price in Jefferson County as of the second quarter of this calendar year was $660,000. The median income is about $73,000. A person who makes $73,000 cannot afford a $660,000 house. It just doesn't pencil out. The bank won't lend them that much money. The bank might lend them 300,000, but they're not going to lend them 660,000. And that's the conundrum that we're facing. It extends to rental housing. Rental housing not only is expensive and more so than before the pandemic hit, but rental housing is just not very available. And many people have been coming to Habitat to apply for housing because their rental units are going away. Landlords are converting them. They are selling them. They become Airbnbs. And so we're not talking about people who can't afford housing. They can afford housing. They just can't afford housing as expensive as it is in this community, East Jefferson County. So the permanent affordability model makes homes affordable to people who make that kind of modest income. It'll be more than $72,000. We think it'll probably go up to about $110,000 income, something like that. So it will fully cover people who are working in many of those professions that we talked about, that I mentioned. But there will be an agreement that in exchange for an affordable home, people will agree to forego market rate appreciation. And in foregoing market rate appreciation and in limiting their future appreciation, they will have a very affordable home. And when they go to sell it, the next person can buy it who's also got a similar kind of income in the future. That allows someone the opportunity for what doesn't exist much anymore, which is that kind of starter home. There's just, if you think about a ladder with rungs, Genevieve did this analogy for me. The bottom rungs are missing and people are having to reach up really high to get to the first rung. And if they can reach that rung that's up high, they should do it. But if they can't, we're trying to build rungs there that people can get to and get housing. Even though they will have limited appreciation, they will have really excellent housing and they will be building equity as homeowners do. Because as people pay principal payments, they build equity in their house and some modest amount of appreciation. So if you want to know more about what that permanent affordability model looks like, I'm happy to tell you more about it. But in the meantime, that's it, maybe enough for now. So I'm going to just stop talking and say, we'd love to hear from you, your questions about this, anything you want clarified. And then also we want to just talk about what's important to you. So let's just start first with questions. What do you still want to know more about? Hi, Betsy.
Am I on mute? Can you hear me?
Yes. Can hear you, yes.
I'm just curious, as one of the organizations who's very interested in collaborating, Northwest School of Wood and Boat Building, I'm just curious. I am assuming that the underlying property would still be owned by Habitat. So a partner, if we were helping in that collaborative pile, that we would come up with the money and financing to handle construction of some number of homes or whatever, but that Habitat would still own the property underneath. But I just wanted to check in what that model might look like.
Yeah, that's correct. Habitat is not going to sell the land when we sell the homes. And so an organization like yours could come in and say, what we really want is to build 12 affordable rentals for students or teachers or something. And we think we need to have mostly 2-bedroom homes or something like that. And multifamily is fine. We design that in and you would take care of the financing and the fundraising for that structure. And in exchange for us having provided the land, you would agree that the rentals on that would always be affordable.
Which is what we would want to do. And so the design process, will you have kind of some set designs and you'd say, oh, this one would work best for us, or that kind of thing?
Yeah, the master plan is going to include doing an architectural understanding of this property. So we're going to want to know who is interested, what organizations are interested in having housing there. And so we'd be wanting to interview, the master planner would be talking to you and saying, what do you need? So that it actually was designed in there and it was incorporated into the planning. And you could see when it's laid out, you could say, that's where Northwest School of Wood and Boat Building is going to be and what it's going to look like.
We're running into a lot of issues for staff with childcare. And I wondered if there's a childcare partner in the collaboration mix somewhere. I know there's a school, but beyond the school.
Yeah, that's a great question. That was really part of the vision, is that childcare could be built into this community. When we met with the school district a couple of months ago with the superintendent and the school board in Chimacum, they said, we really want you to design in the use of the primary school for something like childcare into the overall master plan. So we might not need to be building a place for childcare, but it could be all interactive. That we were kind of excited about that possibility because they have such a nice facility and already the play areas for the preschool and so on.
Cool.
Linda.
Do you already have the other partners who are going to build the slightly more affordable units, or is that going to be a competitive process, or are you worried about getting all the other house units built?
Thanks for asking, Linda. You know, this is a really interesting project. There aren't many roadmaps yet about how to do this. We have talked with other Habitat affiliates that are doing something like this, but it's not all permanently affordable. And we're talking with some other communities. Some of the people who brought this project to us in the beginning have been talking with other communities. How are they doing it? So we hope to learn a lot more as we go along. And we're looking for a master planner who can put together a lot of the options for us of how other partners come in. When we looked at this project, though, before we said yes to buying the property, we priced it out and said, what will it take if we provide the land that's developed? Could we entice a developer, a private developer, to build housing? And could they get a little bit of profit out of it and still sell it for an affordable amount if we didn't charge them for the land? And the answer was yes. The model worked out that way. It showed that they could build a product that would be affordable to people in the community, over 80%, as long as they didn't have to come up with also the money for the land and the infrastructure. So we're still hoping that'll be possible. It's interesting to wonder what's going to happen with mortgage interest rates, where they'll land, because that could be impactful on it. And we'll just have to find that out. But that's the answer right now. It appears that developers will be able to do it. We don't have everyone in place. There will be a process for getting those people in place, but that's part of that planning that has to happen still. Kelsey.
So to clarify, okay, so two parts. One, how many Habitat chapters are there in the whole country?
Around 1,200 or something less. Yeah.
And when you say that you're really the only one doing this kind of model, do you mean like the only one in Washington, or like literally the only one?
The ones that we're aware of at this point, though there are mixed income communities that Habitats have been doing, not very many, of them, a handful, but those mixed income ones, the ones over 80% are being sold for market rate and not as permanently affordable homes. So I'm not aware yet of a habitat that's doing it. It could be that it's happening somewhere, but we're working with our parent organization, Habitat for Humanity International, and they're watching this project. They've said that this is a sort of an incubator project.
You guys are so cool.
And Maria says there are 1,100 Habitat affiliates. Thanks, Maria. Yeah, Bill.
You've talked about Habitat remaining the owner of the property. Will Habitat be responsible for the property taxes that relate to the property, and the homeowner be responsible for the property taxes that relate to the home, or will the homeowner be responsible for the entire real estate tax?
Yeah, great question. The homeowner will be responsible for the entire real estate tax. However, the homes should be appraised by the assessor with the understanding that they will not be sold at market rate. So the assessment should be lower than a market rate assessment. Does that make sense? Because they can't sell them. The restrictions on it will prevent them from selling it for $660,000. They'll only be able to sell it for $300,000, let's just say, plus a little bit of appreciation.
Yeah, and the tough part is the land part of it is going to be very hard to, it's going to be a difficult computation for both, but the land will really be tough because you're used to looking at property values, land versus land. And so, but it's an interesting concept. Is the appreciation that will be allowed, will that be, 2% a year or something like that, or half of whatever normal appreciation would be? Have you had a kind of a concept of what?
Yes, we do. Thanks for asking that. Our board went through quite a process to arrive at this, and I have a couple of board members here, so they might want to jump in at some point. But the way that the process went, we worked with a consultant on this, and we looked back 20 years to look at at various ways that we could scale appreciation. And we looked at different models. One is a fixed kind of a rate that you could make it go up. Another is a rate based on an index, like the consumer price index, let's say. Or maybe you could tie it to the area median income and make it go up in line with the area median income. We ended up selecting the simplest one we could because we were encouraged by our consultant that simplicity has a lot of value for transparency to the buyers. And we found that 1.5% simple interest annually tracked really well over the last 20 years with how incomes had appreciated in this community. And so that right now is our formula for our Habitat homes and what appreciation there will be. We are currently in a discussion. Our task force that's worked on this with our consultant is now investigating how does this apply to people who are over Habitat's income limit? Should there be any modification made to that? At this point, I think we're leaning towards keeping it the same, both under and over the 80% median income, that people would have the same rate of appreciation, but that is yet to be finalized. So feel free to keep asking questions, but I want to open it up that we would love to hear from you about what you think should be important in designing this. And Betsy, you started that off, but talk to us about what you think is important. So childcare, I heard that, and access to childcare. What else do you think should we be thinking about in designing this community? Yeah, Owen.
I would love to see a design that doesn't require people to have cars. And the location where it is in Hadlock, the connectivity to shops and restaurants and services is really pretty poor. You know, you basically have to walk along Ness's Corner Road, and that's not great. So, you know, there may be some sort of larger community design questions that come up around that.
That's a really interesting question. I know that the county is looking at a trail that will connect eventually all the way to the school, to the elementary and high school. So maybe that's a piece of it. But yeah, rural areas tend to have busy roads. What else do you think we should be considering? Bill, you look like you're ready to say something.
I don't play poker, and that's why. I know that some of the other communities that are purpose-built like this focus on having certain kinds of workshop or common facilities, whether that's, and workshop is the kind of the one that comes to mind that I think is in the Quimper community up in Port Townsend. My feeling is that those kind of amenities should be pretty limited, because you can spend an awful lot of time and space putting in fancy facilities that very few people use. But I think to have some of those makes an awful lot of sense, because there are people that would like to work with their hands and have some tools and things like that. So I think those kind of amenities are certainly something that should be considered. And the second thought I have is that it should have a range of bedrooms, not all be 2-bedroom, not all be there ought to be a range of sizes to meet the overall population.
Thank you. Kayla, you look like you had unmuted. If you want to say something.
I did. So I had a couple of thoughts. One is native plant landscaping. So we don't introduce more non-native and potentially invasive plant species, and maybe get the conservation district involved in helping plan out the landscaping.
Good thought.
And the other thing I was thinking about, I'm a big tiny home advocate, and so I was wondering what the current thought is on having tiny homes, and how they would fit into the financial plan.
Are you thinking, when you say that, are you describing like Peter's Place and Pat's Place?
No, I'm just generally a tiny home nut. So.
Oh, got it. Well, let me tell you, right now we have on our drawing board 7 one-bedroom cottages that are 570 square feet each. Does that sort of fit with that, what you're talking about?
Yeah, that's pretty close. They're guys, tiny homes don't necessarily have to be on a trailer. They could be around, and they can certainly be built to have more than one loft bedroom, and they can be built on one floor so that older folks can have access and be comfortable.
Yeah, I thank you for bringing that up. We are Habitat builds small and efficient footprints. That's been really important to us, and we've also been for several years designing what's called ADA visitable, which means it's ready for aging in place or for what happens in life. So the bathroom is fully wheelchair. It can accommodate a wheelchair. All the hallways and doorways accommodate. There's at least one entryway that has no steps. And we would expect to continue to do that and make sure that this community similarly meets that. I think our whole community is sort of ready for aging in place. That's not just a few people of us that need that. So we thank you for the comments though about small, and that's why I asked you about tiny, because tiny homes have different, like you said, sometimes people look at them on wheels. I don't think we'll do anything impermanent, and we won't do anything that doesn't have plumbing and kitchens in it. Those will be important. So we won't do the tiny wooden shelter kinds of development, but small and efficient cottage style would be certainly on the board. Yeah, Linda, you're muted.
I worked when my husband and I built our house. We really wanted to keep it in green built. You know, we didn't want any toxic chemicals used and that sort of thing. And we wanted to set the house in a way that took advantage of the natural light, and you know, you'd get some heat from the sun, etc.
Yep.
So do you have anyone on board who's working in those areas to make sure that the houses are environmentally healthy and also taking advantage of the environment in the sense of heat and things?
Yeah, in about 2009, we moved to building, to removing all materials from our house construction that had off-gassing. We've been doing low VOC construction ever since. So we removed carpets, for example. We do things like laminate floors. We do low VOC paint. And all of those things have been really important in how we design homes. The passive solar, when we can do that, it's really important. We are also looking at the possibility of beginning to design a net zero house or community. It's not something we've committed to yet with this project, but I can tell you that the orientation of the land is really probably conducive to that. So we will look at it and see how that pencils out. If we could include that in it. We've certainly been encouraged by many of those who are part of Habitat to look at how do we reduce the carbon footprint of what we're building and what people live in. We do, all of our houses have been Energy Star since about 2010, certified Energy Star. So quite a bit more energy efficient than code is. And that just feels like it's really important. Not only do people have a lower energy bill, but it does work better for our whole environment.
Is it possible that you can use solar panels in the design?
Yeah, we would definitely need to do solar panels if we do a net zero community. So we'll have to look at that, price it. It might be that we can get some particular, maybe there will be rebates, maybe there will be grants available. We're just going to have to look at all the options. I think it would be pretty exciting if that could happen, but I don't think we could say yes or no at this point that we can for sure do it. We don't know yet.
Do you envision or a kind of a look and feel that is related among all the properties, or do you imagine having a landscape board that designs the lands, and since Habitat's keeping the land as their property? I think there's a balance here between people having a house that they feel is theirs and moving into a planned community that, really requires a lot more community interaction.
How would you think we ought to, what would your recommendation be?
Well, 120 units, homes, whatever, it's a lot. And so it's hard for me to imagine how you would create something without having individual components. In other words, almost different segments, not, and yet you don't want people to feel like, well, we're the habitat people and we're the boat building people in a way. I mean, I don't know, do people want that? So I don't know. I like the idea of planning the landscape, but I don't want to over control the environment.
I think that's said well. Anybody else have thoughts about what you hope or would recommend to us? Yeah, Betsy. Oh, I see someone. Hang on, Betsy, you're muted.
Go to anyone else because I already talked once, and I see Michael's ready to go.
Yeah, and I see Jim. Whoever is with Jim is ready to talk.
Hey there, my name's Christina. I'm actually with the boat school as well, but I am one of those said employees who have children, and I work a lot with our students in coming and finding housing, and the hardest people to house, the first tier, are those with families and children. And I was just wondering if, or thinking might be important around these communities is to make them, one, walkable communities, but walkable communities with strollers and whatnot, but also if there's any community spaces planned that were gated for children.
Oh, good input. So something that has a fence around that someone could sit down and relax, that their child's not going to run right into
the street. Yeah, I know the primary school is right there, but I don't know how accessible their play will be after hours and things like that. But just kind of, yeah, a small community space for, and I don't know how much room there will be around yards and landscaping and whatnot with that many units. So maybe some dedicated spaces for everybody to use, but also to keep children corralled and have somewhere to go, because it's really important to get out of the house when you have small children.
Yeah, that's great input. Thank you. Michael, were you ready to say something?
Yes, I'm not sure what I wanted to say because my thoughts aren't very well put together on this. The topic of maintenance on the places and upkeep comes to mind, and it kind of makes me wonder about unintended consequences of how the whole thing develops. And initially, I had written down here, how will these places be priced, and is Habitat going to be writing down the cost of the real estate or of the raw land to make the project work? Because I assume the houses are going to cost whatever they cost, whatever the building materials and labor is not going to be very flexible. So you're probably going to have to pay that. I think the only place where there's really any flexibility on what the end price will be is probably in the land. So I'm just kind of curious as to how that's going to work into the equation. And on the maintenance business, I'm just kind of curious about how the sociology might work, or if sociology is going to be an interest or a factor, and is there going to be any diminished pride and ownership because they live in this spot, which is however you want to describe it. And I guess, and then get back to my initial question, which was how will the places be priced? And you've got a moving target, so I'm kind of curious as to how you're going to put that together.
Yeah, the land cost won't need to be in the equation for the house pricing, because so many people have stepped up so generously to underwrite the land and the infrastructure. It can be in there if there's room in the pricing for it to be there, but it won't have to be. And that will help to make the pricing right for the people who are going to live there. The way that we'll price houses and the way that rent will be priced will be based on people's income, so that they don't have to pay more than 1/3 of their income for their housing payment. So that will be how we set prices, and there's a little bit of complexity in that, but basically you can kind of figure it out. You can say, okay, if I make $3,000 a month, I can afford a $1,000 a month house payment. Back out the interest, back out the insurance. What's that make it? What's the, do back out the insurance and the property taxes, and what's my principal and interest payment, and do get a mortgage calculator online, and you can figure out what mortgage you can afford there. And we'll figure it out based on that. So that's how we'll price, how houses will be priced. Maintenance and pride of ownership. The land leases will be 99 years long, renewable, and inheritable. So for all intents and purposes, people will feel like this is their land that they're living on. They won't feel like, oh, someone's going to take it away from me in 30 years and tell me I have to move away, because it's theirs. And every time a house sells, that 99 years starts over again. That's how it will feel to people, that it's their own. And so what we see is that it will be very, we think there will be huge pride of ownership, and that the community will be cared for well. We expect to put in place a homeowner association, condo owner association, if that's applicable, and that will be part of helping to maintain good standards. And if you're ever interested in seeing a community like this at work that has a whole range of incomes, there's one on Bainbridge, really close to the ferry, called Ferncliff. It's run by Housing Resources Bainbridge. So if you just Google Housing Resources Bainbridge and look up Ferncliff, go drive through it when you go to the ferry next time and look at it. It's beautiful. You would not be able to tell the difference between houses that are occupied by people who are lower income versus people who are moderate income. There are both single family homes and townhouses, and it's 100% permanently affordable. It's a beautiful community. I love that community, and I feel like it's a great example of what this community can be. It will be different. Theirs is on a hill, and it's kind of meadowish and rocky a bit. But anyway, I was extremely impressed when I went walking through there on a tour with the staff there and saw what they were doing.
How old is it?
They built it in 2 phases. Maria might know, she might be able to answer, but I think that the most recent phase was finished 5 years ago, 6 years ago, something like that.
I don't know the exact answer to that, but I can certainly get it for you.
I think it's on their website. It tells when they were built. Yeah. Other input. Do you want to, let's see, come back, Betsy, you had started to talk about something.
Oh, just a couple things. I think it'd be cool to have a great system for bikes. And I know Amsterdam and stuff, there's these really cool bike elevator, I don't know what, but anyway, just bikes take space and they also get stolen. And there's a lot of interest in people in this housing community not having to have a car. So investing a little extra on the bike front, I think.
Nice idea.
Another thing, at least I know for our students, food insecurity is an issue, and it'd be lovely to have a pea patch as part of the project, where people who have a little house can still have a little bed in the pea patch.
Nice.
Go ahead, sorry.
I said nice.
And then outdoor pavilions are wonderful to be able to gather outdoors in the rain. I know that the Land Trust is building one or built one. It's beautiful over at Valley View Forest. And they're using like it as a gathering place for field trips and stuff, but just a place people can hang out and have a picnic or be outside together or do some watercoloring together or whatever. A few of those.
Thank you. Great suggestions. Genevieve is taking notes, by the way. This is really helpful input. Jane.
An idea that stuck with me when Michael and I traveled a number of years ago was we were in Macau, and this has to do with sort of park-like areas. You found scattered among the community, even on walking sidewalks, I think they were hydraulic, but they were low maintenance, they were low impact exercise equipment, and even paths with polished rocks that you could get kind of a foot massage if you were barefoot. But it was heavily used by people going out on a walk, or groups that would gather and they'd rotate like you do in a gym among the equipment. And it, you didn't need training. We just got on them and could use them along with the 15-year-olds and the 90-year-olds. But it was really good for movement and balance. And I looked at it, and some of that equipment, the only place I could find it was that it was Chinese made. But anyway, that type of thing that encourages people to be out in the outdoors in a way that's playground-like, whatever the age.
Thank you. Thanks, Maria, for looking that up. Ferncliff completed phase 1 2014, phase 2 2016. Yeah. Hi.
I'm with Linda here in the background. I would recommend that you consider putting in electric vehicle charging stations.
Oh, yeah.
That seems to be the future. The price of these vehicles seems to be dropping. And I would just think that you're going to have individuals living in there that may want that. They may need that, whether they want it or not, but they need it. So.
Thanks for that suggestion. That's a great one. Jim, you've got your hand raised.
Yeah, I think this just kind of plays in a little bit to the idea of having a lot of shared community space and stuff. But just as everybody was talking, I'm thinking about just how to manage, parking rather than having people with individual parking spots in front of each of their homes. If there was parking pods or a larger lot that was shared by all the members, which might allow for more, public space, green space within the community areas.
Thank you. I mentioned the project we're doing right now, the 7 one-bedroom homes. That's how that's designed, with the parking to the side. It's a Ross Chapin design, and he's sort of famous for designing that way to make it so that cars are de-emphasized and people are in relationships are supported. I really appreciate the thoughts that you've had, and we're going to stay on until 4:30. If you need to drop off, feel free to. But if you have thoughts after this and you go, oh man, I wish I'd said that, please email us. I'm director@habitatejc.org. And Genevieve, I think you probably have her email because you got the link that way. But let us know. We love to have the input. It helps us think about this. We are going to continue to have community meetings with our master planner on board. That will be important. In fact, before we do finish up, I wanted to mention what's going to happen, how to stay informed. We're going to be doing a mailing, an email list for people who want to know updates specifically about Mason Street, this property, and let us know if you want to be on that. We'll be glad to put you on that. I don't think those will happen real often, those updates, but they will happen from time to time, more so as we start the development happening. And then on December 17, we're going to do a community cleanup. The property has had some trashing happen, you know, junk has been deposited there over time. A lot's been cleaned up. It looks so much better. Some great work has happened, but we'll do a community cleanup on December 17. If you're interested in that, Genevieve, reach out to you. Is that, or how?
Yeah, if you want to reach out to me, that's great. And I'll make sure that your information gets passed along to Amy Howard, who is our volunteer coordinator or manager, excuse me, and she will make sure that you have all of the information about that. There will be, just so everybody knows, there'll be a special requirement for footwear for your protection.
We don't want anyone stepping on rusty nails.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, Michael.
I just had a look on the electric internet here about the exercise equipment Jane was referring to. It's in the Portuguese colony of Macau near Hong Kong. So that's Macau. And if you look on the internet for Macau outdoor fitness equipment, you'll find this stuff. And it's just kind of like playground equipment painted in interesting colors. You walk by these things and they're so inviting, you just get on them to play at them, and you could actually do some good exercise. I'm surprised they haven't made it here, but that was what Jane was referring to.
That's really cool.
Actually, they are here. I've seen them here in the US. In some
neat.
towns.
In San
Around
Francisco.
here or where?
I saw a few in Oregon when I was traveling there not too many years ago, but they're easy. It's pretty easy to acquire a set. I looked at doing it for Fort Worden, and so it's real doable. The stone,
that's great.
The stone walkway is not so.
Yeah,
haven't seen that.
There was a question about how do you get on the email list? If you let me or Genevieve know, we'll be happy to add you to that Mason Street special email list. If you just want in general updates, just ask and we'll put you on the regular Habitat email. We do a once a month e-newsletter and we'll be updating on that. The specific Mason Street email will particularly be focused so that people know there's going to be work going on this weekend, so that neighbors don't get worried, things like that. What the project status is right now. So if you want to know more about it for sure, let us know that you'd like that. And if you just want general updates, we're happy to send you that monthly one.